Welcome back to the 1090 podcast. I'm here with Kelly Bussio. I pronounced that right, Kelly?
Yep.
And I made the joke before, I think, but if you're on the 1090 podcast, your life probably sucks in some way. So I'm sorry that you're here, but thank you for being here. I'm going to start with the obituary. Brent Crompton. Ogden. This is Ogden, Utah. And this happened 1996.
1996.
I have so many questions for you.
Yeah.
Is the pain... What's the pain like now? Like 28 years
The pain.
later.
There's so many different types of pain. Do you mean the loss of Brent or the loss of
I'm not so much your physical pain, because that's just something I can't really relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll definitely talk about that. And I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. But I wasn't in that accident, so I didn't get hurt like you did. But I guess I mean more of like the grief of loss and the pain of them not being here and that.
It has dulled. It's not as sharp as it used to be, and it's less frequent. But when I feel grief, it's deep.
It still hurts the same.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So look forward to that.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, I'm not the best at reading, and I'm reading very serious, heavy stuff, so I apologize. But here we go. Clifford Brent Crompton died Thursday, June 27th, 1996, in an airplane accident in Chico Hot Springs, Montana. He was born January 13th, 1948, in Salt Lake City, Utah, to Clifford and Faye Bairn Crompton of Orem, Utah. He graduated from Orem High. What's Orem's mascot? The Tigers.
The Tigers.
There we go. He served in the U.S. Army for 3 years. He married Vicki Timpson on December 8th, 1967. They had 2 daughters, Tiffany and Kimberly. Brent worked at Geneva Steelworks in Orem and was presently employed at Kimberly-Clark in Ogden, Utah. Is this just bringing a bunch of memories back for you as I read this, or what, Kelly?
Not yet, because you're not to me yet.
Okay.
He had a previous wife.
He was an avid skier, skydiver, mountain bike racer, and enjoyed many outdoor activities. Brent found the love of his life, Kelly Golding Carroll. There you are, Kelly.
There I am.
And married her on December 28th, 1993. Their marriage was a truly happy union. With Kelly came another beautiful daughter, Kristen Shalene, so sorry. Brent lived his life as deeply as he could. He was a hopeless romantic and passionate about everything, especially his 5 women, his mother, his wife, and his 3 daughters. He read so much and had knowledge of great and many things. He was extremely spiritual. He didn't believe in evil, but believed there was goodness in everybody. He believed in constant progression and that we have the potential to become anything we want, no matter what the constraints of our several lives. He loved, respected, and was very proud of all 3 of his daughters. He was excited about becoming a grandfather, at the same time continued to relish being a father. Everyone loved Brent because he first loved them, and he wasn't afraid to show love to his father, his brothers, and his male friends. He was proud of his 2 sons-in-law, Chris, who has loved Tiffany from the moment he met her, and Von Dell, who has proved himself and who he knows will take great care of his baby girl. It's hard winning the love of your father-in-law. Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Brent is survived by his mother and father, Clifford and Faye, who taught him all the goodness that he possessed. His wife, Kelly, and daughters, Tiffany, Bree, and Kristen, who loved him unconditionally. His 5 brothers, Craig and Janice of Green River, Wyoming, Kevin, Lynn, Corey, and Donna, all of Warm, Utah, Daryl and Tammy of Bakersfield, California, Kirby and Jody of Providence, Utah, and all of his nieces and nephews, his first grandchild, who is on the way and whose spirit is being taught by Brent's spirit how to love and how to treat his mother, Bree, with respect. Each of his brothers felt that Brent was his favorite brother. Every person with whom he came in contact was touched by his love. A celebration of his life will be held Wednesday, July 3rd, 1996. Okay, and then this one, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, I just want to read this other one real quick. To Utah. Is this like a news clip or what is this?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that one's out of Montana.
That's cool that you have these like laminated and that's cool.
Yeah, I think my mom did that for me.
And at the time you're like, whatever, and now
Yeah,
here you are.
now I'm grateful
Yeah,
for it.
me too.
Yeah.
Okay, one more and then we'll get rolling today. Okay, so 2 Utahns killed, 1 hurt in plane crash. An Ogden man and Salt Lake City man were killed in an airplane crash at about 12:30 p.m. Thursday. The Park County coroner identified the dead as Stephen Gremler, 44 of Salt Lake City, and Brent Crompton, age unknown, of Ogden. His wife, Kelly Crompton, was in critical condition Friday at the medical center in Billings. Witnesses said the single-engine airplane was attempting to land on the straight 2-lane paved road at the Chico Hot Springs Resort. The road sometimes served as a runway. Heavy crosswinds from the south disrupted the landing and the pilot was trying to pull up when wind tipped the aircraft toward its side, witnesses said. People have been flying into the resort for an annual skydivers meeting. The weekend event has been canceled. Okay. Should be a rough one, but a good one today.
Life's 10% what happens to you and 90% what you're going to do about it.
Welcome back to the 1090 podcast. Life's 10% what happens to you and 90% what you're going to do about it. Kelly, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You're amazing. I know it's so hard to talk and to feel it and to go there. So thank you for being willing to do it. Kelly, where do you want to start with? Sorry, David.
Wow.
Where do you want to start with your story?
Well, let's start with Brent.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. I had been in a couple of bad relationships and happened upon this guy when I was skydiving who was a student, and he had like 10 skydives, and he was available, I was available, spent a little bit of time together. Absolutely was my soulmate.
Did you guys go skydiving together ever? Like,
Yes.
so did you like attach to his body and he like threw you out of the plane? Isn't that like what you usually do your first time?
Yeah, they do that. This was in 19...
You guys are hardcore back then. You guys
in the
would jump.
90s, yeah, that was before.
Like, here's your parachute, jump out. Wow, okay.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's funny.
Now, you had a couple of people that held on to you and
Sure,
a
yeah.
couple of instructors and jump out of the airplane. I had about 700 skydives and he had like 10. So he was just starting.
I didn't know you were a daredevil. I didn't know you were a
daredevil.
skydiving machine.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I really miss. That's what I'm grieving, is my adventure life,
Your body.
my gravity life, you know.
Yeah. Wow, your gravity life.
Yeah. Speed.
Yeah, not a lot of people have that mindset about life. My gravity life. Wow, that's cool.
Anyway, we fell in love, and it was the best marriage out of everybody in the world. We all want to think that, right?
That's what
Yeah.
mine was for
Yeah.
sure.
And we would go to skydiving parties. They call them boogies, like a 3-day weekend, and you go and you jump your brains out and,
I
make
think
10 jumps a day. And
I
then,
think I was born in the wrong time era.
Yeah.
This sounds awesome.
They
a little
s-
boogie.
people still skydive. You can still
Not
learn.
like this, it sounds like. But yeah, I do need to go.
Yeah. So we were going to Chico Hot Springs, which our friend Bob Rocks scheduled a party there, a boogie there every year. And I had been several times. Brent had been one time. Decided to go that year as well. Sometimes we drove. Sometimes we flew up. That year, my friend Steve Grimler, who was a pilot, I would go out flying with him. I'd sit co-pilot, and he would, teach me and let me fly. And I had taken I was getting my pilot's license. I had just a few more hours to do. I had taken the test, passed that. So I'd spent a lot of time in the airplane with him. He's a great pilot, great guy. He and his wife and Brent and I were going to go up to Chico and spend the weekend there. At the last minute, his wife had to cancel. So it was just the three of us. Steve flying. When Brent and I got to the airport, we met him at the Salt Lake airport, and I really wanted to fly. I just loved it so much, but Brent hadn't flown, so I did the martyr thing. Here, you sit in the front seat, I'll sit back here. And anyway, so get in the airplane, do our pre-checks and everything, and take off. And it was raining in Ogden, I remember, but it wasn't raining in Salt Lake. And the flight up there was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And Brent got to fly. I sat back and watched. And Chico is turn of the century, the 20th century. It was like a 1900-year-old, it was built in the 1900s, and it had natural hot pots, kind of like lava hot springs, if you're familiar with that.
I love lava hot springs.
Yeah. And every night they would let the water out, and then in the morning the water would fill back up into the pool, and it was a pretty big sized pool, and it was warm. It was cool. So it was.
No, I just visited the hot springs in Idaho, and there's a river you can float down to, and it is so much fun.
It looks a lot like the Homestead in Heber, Utah.
Yeah.
An old lodge. There's a ghost in one of the rooms, and
did the ghost have a name? Do you remember?
You know what? I don't know.
They usually have a name.
It's a woman, and she rocks in a rocking chair.
Maybe Flo. Sounds
Flo?
like Flo.
That's a good name.
We'll go with Flo.
We'll go with that. We'll go with Flo.
There's Flo in one of the rooms.
Anyway, it was just a really good time, relaxing. People would come from all over the West, and our friend Bob, who organized it, was an old time skydiver, and had buddies that would come in, and a bunch of us from Salt Lake would fly in or drive in and just jump all day and then drink all night.
Wow, see the boogie nights.
Yeah, boogie.
What I just have a skydiving question real quick. If you take the plane up, you jump, getting back on the plane, how long would that take you? one jump and then you're back on the plane like an hour? Like, how many jumps are you getting in a day?
You could do 10, but you're really humping it because you got to pack your parachute in between.
And you guys just bring food and you're just kind of snacking in between jumps, or like?
There's a restaurant there, and
Okay,
you know,
okay. So I'm just trying to envision,
they
like,
have. Well,
because I've never done anything like this before. It just sounds
well,
awesome.
at Chico, it's like an old lodge, white. It's got screen doors on the front of the, big long porch, and people would sit out there and, watch. And there was a fairly big courtyard that's surrounded by trees, and we'd all go hang out on the grass out there and pack our parachutes and watch skydives and just pretty much hang out. It's really a hangout kind of sport. It's not.
Oh yeah, it sounds like too much fun. Is there, like, how many more things are funner than skydiving? I can't imagine a whole lot. Like, what's better?
I really liked kayaking, but I hadn't got into it a lot before my accident.
Kayaking just sounds not nearly as intense as
No, it's not. But
those.
skydiving, yeah, it is scary fun.
Yeah, I want to go skydiving.
Well, do it.
I think my mom actually bought me and my brother like a pass to go, because my brother Ace used to skydive all the time.
Huh.
And we just haven't gone yet. But now I'm getting pumped up talking to you.
Go.
And so, yeah, it's going to happen soon.
Good.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to stop asking weird
That's all right.
parachute jumping out of planes questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so but this is where you met? You guys fell in love quickly?
We didn't
And
meet
you're
in Chico. We met here.
You're flying to Chico.
Right. We met here in Salt Lake at the Cedar Valley Airport, which is not there anymore. Now there's a city on top of that. Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain, I guess, is where it was. So we met there. We decided to go to Chico. So Brent's flying the airplane, and it's like flying. Well, Chico sits like on the north side of Yellowstone Park.
Okay.
So there's big mountains. The valley where Chico is the same place where Yellowstone takes place.
Like-
The movie Yellowstone
Oh,
takes
wow,
place.
okay, yeah.
So that gives you an idea. There's big mountains all around it, and with a valley.
Yeah, very pretty.
Yeah, gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So as we get into the valley, we're flying at like 10,000 feet. So we've got a circle to come down to land. You just kind of bleed off your altitude.
Yeah.
In Montana, it's so unpopulated and there's so few airports that it's legal to land an airplane on the highway.
No way.
Yeah, you have to block off the road, ensure no cars are coming. But it's the weirdest thing when you drive there. You'd be driving down a little highway and there'd be a farmer's house and his airplane is parked in the carport.
Just taking off, landing. That was,
Yeah.
Well, it's a Wild West out there.
Yeah. So we found Chico, we're circling over it to bleed off our air and get pretty low. We're probably like 4,000, 3,000, 2,000 feet above the drop zone. And they have a windsock there because people fly into it. And they've got the aviation radio is at the front desk of the hotel, of the lodge. And so whoever is working the front desk that day gets on the, radio and talks to the pilot.
Yeah.
So Steve called down and said, hey, we're ready to land. can you pull a car out and block the traffic on the road? And every year we would kind of fight over who got to drive the really, really old fire truck down to the end of the road to block traffic. It's totally Wild West.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. With parameters,
Yeah.
So we could see them pulling a car down. They blocked the road off. And we get to about 2,000 feet. And Steve says, we're all wearing headsets, radios. We could talk to each other all the way up on the flight. And he said, okay, I'm getting ready to land, give me a little piece here. So, we didn't want to be talking when he was trying to concentrate on landing or talking to the front desk. The windsock laying totally flat, no wind, awesome, great. We start, finish our circling, and I kind of cinched up my, seatbelt, and then I heard a voice, like a guy was sitting right next to me. There was nothing sitting next to me in the back seat other than Steve's red emergency kit. And this voice says to me, do not land here. And I look around, like, did I really hear that? And it wasn't like it was in my head. It was an audible voice, like someone was sitting there.
And you have like a headset on.
Yeah, I've got
with voices coming in and out, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't like
right. No, I'm just saying, like, it's probably very confusing for you, like, in that moment, like, wait, what was that voice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. What was that? And did everybody hear that? It didn't sound like it was coming now that you say that, it didn't sound like it was coming through the headphones.
Gotcha.
It sounded like somebody was just sitting beside me, saying into my ear, do not land here. I'm like, all right. So that was weird.
Yeah.
We circle again. Same voice, do not land here. 5 times we circle, and this voice says to me, do not land here. The last time he warns me, he said, do not land here, go to the Flying Y. The Flying Y was a little airstrip that was further out into the valley. It was a dirt strip. We had landed there before, when the weather got bad, and we couldn't land at Chico. And each time I ignored that. And I didn't. Steve and I always had this signal, if you feel uncomfortable about something, tell me and we'll abort, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I'm like, surely they're hearing this. Surely they have this feeling inside of them as well.
And they're professional pilots, right? Like, they've flown.
Right.
I mean, yeah. Like, you're not. I wouldn't imagine you're too concerned about them flying because they've done it a lot.
Yeah. Steve, I mean, he flew a lot, made a lot of landings.
Yeah. And it's weird. We've had a lot of people on our podcast, whether it's a hiking accident, parachuting accident, whatever it is, like, these people are like experts in the field.
Yeah.
We did an episode with a drowning death, and the dad was a breathway expert, like, to help people breathe. Like, and so it's just like, yeah, this could happen to professionals, to amateurs, good people, bad people, rich people, poor. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It does not matter. And it doesn't matter what religion you are.
Yeah, we could keep going. Yeah. Religion, race, gender,
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter.
And so much of all that changed since 1996,
Well, I think that's like the cool thing about when you talk about grief, Kelly, is like all of a sudden, like, that stuff doesn't matter anymore. Like, who cares about that stuff? And you just get this really personal connection with someone. You talk about pain and grief
Yeah.
and the how that's similar for
Yeah.
every one of us.
And
I
how
think.
it feels, because it feels different
Yeah.
in your soul. And yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah, sorry. So a voice in your
that's
head, and
fine.
you're like, okay, like,
Yeah.
what do I do here? Yeah.
The very last time as he was coming in for final approach, we could see the truck. There were people standing behind the truck that had blocked off the traffic. Everyone's like, oh, an airplane's going to land. Our very last go around, this man said to me, this is going to be like no other landing you've ever had.
So the same voice that you've been hearing,
Yep.
that's what you've heard. That's what you
Yeah.
heard now too.
And I remember thinking, I wouldn't have said it that way. This is going to be like no other landing you've ever had.
Yeah, kind of vague.
Vague, and I wouldn't have phrased it that way. I had people tell me, yeah, that didn't happen. Whatever, But, and when I would try to explain to them about it, I could never come up with the description of, I wouldn't have ever put those words together in that order. My brain wouldn't have thought of,
Yeah.
it that way.
Like it wasn't you that came up with it because you
Exact-
wouldn't have
exactly.
said it like that.
You're right. That's what I want to say. So the truck's down, blocking traffic, and the last thing I remember is looking out of the window over my right shoulder and looking way down. And it's like 40 feet. We're only 40 feet off the runway by then.
Wow.
And we cleared the truck, and then I lose my memory. But that's where I pick up where everybody on the ground is watching. People are, coming outside to watch an airplane land, because on the other end of the road, you have to block it off because it turns into a little skinny road where the lodge is built and you can't get an airplane in there. It's a box canyon. You just can't get there. There were people coming out to watch us, but it was so windy that they had a hard time walking out of a door. The wind was so strong on the ground. Trees are really bending over, and people are having a hard time, leaning into walking. We had no idea there was wind on the ground. The windsock was laying totally flat. But Chico sits in just a teeny little, gully. And so on the one side, it's a 40-foot tall bluff. Down on the bottom of that is Chico. And that bluff it wasn't windy up there. So what they were looking, or down at the bottom,
Yeah.
it wasn't, the windsock, excuse me, let me start over.
So does the windsock detect like how much wind there is? Is that
Yeah,
its
to
job?
show
It
that the
tells
wind
you
is-
like
yeah.
this is how windy it is.
Yeah.
Okay, and so from what you saw from that, it was telling you
flat.
it was flat. It was not.
Yeah,
windy.
it was flat. There was no wind.
Yeah.
Because it was protected by this bluff, because it sat right down on the road.
Yeah.
And, the windsock, there was no wind. Where the windsock was, right above the bluff, it was just spinning and spinning, and it was very windy. That was the problem. We touched down, and the wind would just buffet him, trying to keep the airplane on the ground or trying to pull it up, and he just couldn't get it either way. people were standing at the end of the runway. There's a barricade, and they're standing on one side of the barricade, and they're like, he's not stopping. He's not stopping. He's not, pull up, because
wow.
it was coming right into people who were there to watch. There was a respiratory nurse and a critical care nurse who were there on vacation, and they had a friend with them, who was in the Air Force. So he was a pilot, and they were standing there. He's like, he's not doing anything. Well, he finally was able to pull up and very close to the lodge, and the wind caught us and cartwheeled us into a field and broke the wings off the airplane. And I've got pictures of it on fire and all smashed up.
Yeah. You brought him over and saw him, and yeah, my heart just dropped looking at him.
Yeah.
So is this a 4-seater plane then? Or
It's a 4-seater. There's 3 people in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Steve's wife was going to go, but
Yeah.
she couldn't last minute. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a Piper Arrow, which it wasn't a jump plane. We didn't bring that to be the jump plane. We were just flying in that.
When do you remember? So did you just wake up in the hospital? Or when do you start remembering stuff?
In the hospital. So once we cartwheeled, people started running towards the airplane. And I know these details because those 2 nurses were married. Their names are Bernadette and Ray, and they wrote everything down for me, and everything that had happened, so I could fill in the blanks. They contacted my mom. I think that they must have met in the hospital when I was in Billings. I'm not sure how they met now that I think about it. But they wrote down their experience watching it. So they all ran over to the airplane. They were building a new little lodge there, and there were some construction workers. And it was lunchtime, so they were sitting out on the deck watching the airplane land. One guy was leaning on a fire extinguisher, and he had the wherewithal to grab it and take it with him. The airplane was on fire. They had to figure out how to put that out. On airplanes, the fuel is in the wings. One of the wings had broken off, and we were laying upside down on the airplane. And it was so smashed up in the cab that it looked like you couldn't get a person in it. There was no way anybody could be in that airplane. It was all smashed up. But we were all just folded up in there with the fuselage. So they were able to get the fire out.
I mean, it's good that you kind of have all these people around waiting for the plane to land, like nurses and a guy. I mean, that's kind of
crazy, right? What a coincidence!
And then the voice too, that's.
Our friend Bob hadn't made it to Chico yet. He was driving there. We got in a little bit earlier, and we flew in a day earlier than the skydivers because we were going to spend some time with Bob. And he was driving from Billings. And he said that as he was driving, he was pretty close to the Chico turnoff. And he saw police lights behind him, and they just kept coming fast past him, and then they turned into the Chico exit, and he's like, oh man, something's happened. So he got there shortly after we crashed. People are running around. They don't know how many people are in the airplane. Bob thought that there were 4 of us in there because he thought Chris, Steve's wife, was coming. They're, trying to stabilize the airplane. They put cement blocks underneath the other wing and to try to hold it up, and it was sparking. And, they're yelling, don't make a fire. When Bob got there, the fire truck had gotten there as well. And they're trying to figure out how to keep the fire away from the airplane, but there's people in there. And Bob said, I got this. The battery in this airplane is in the very back of the tail, very last. And he had to undo the battery so that no power was going to the engine, because it was like a constant fire, because there was always, ignition. So he got down on his back and shimmied through the wreckage when it was on fire.
Man,
Yeah,
a hero.
he is. Yeah. He was able to shimmy to the very back of the airplane and undid the battery connection. And then they were able to really work on figuring out who was there.
What a brave guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he didn't even think about it. He just
Natural reaction.
did it. There was so much going on that it was all happening at the same time. The nurses, they ran over. Steve, you could see Steve, apparently. He was hanging upside down, strapped in with his seatbelt, but he was gray and breathing really, really heavily. They call it agonal breathing. It's right before you die. So Bernadette was able to be there and held him and as much as she could to ease his pain. And he died when she was holding him. And they weren't sure how many other people were in the plane. People weren't talking, or they were yelling, and Bob, was trying to put the fire out, and they're like, there's somebody else in here. I was whimpering, I guess, and little meek voice, and somebody was able to finally look in and see me, so they were talking to me. Stay awake, are you okay?
Were you responding at all?
Yes.
But you just don't remember at all?
I don't remember
Man,
it.
that's
Yeah,
so weird,
I don't know.
isn't it?
I don't know if it's the trauma or the drugs that they gave me.
Yeah.
That helps you not remember. I think it's a blessing that I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to know, but I don't.
You'd like to know that what?
I'd like to know every detail, every second, what people did. I'd like to remember their names that helped me.
Because I have this, I'm so glad I was in the car with my family. And
Yeah.
then my next thought is like, well, actually, that's all I want. I wish I was. That's all I.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what? It's like you have both these thoughts at the same time. Like, I'm so glad I didn't see it. And then I feel bad I didn't see anything. And I wish I did.
Yeah. You're
And
right.
so watching you just go through that live, like right in front of me, was so, I appreciated it so much, because that's what you do is, I'm so glad I didn't see it. And then you sat there and then you gave this little smile and then you're like, or I don't know, actually, maybe. Yeah. Like that is grief. Like you don't even know what you want with like you don't even know. Yeah.
Well, someone along the way told me that grief happens because you don't get to say goodbye. You don't get that final, okay, love
Yeah.
you, see you, Um, it's you grieve the conversations that you don't have, or that you didn't have at that instance, or that you don't get to have in the future. That's what grief is. Anyway, so I'm whimpering and they're trying to talk to me. And I was going to college at the time. I was a late starter. And somebody asked, do you go to school? Yeah. So they were talking me through, trying to keep me
So you're in the
alert.
airplane while you're answering these questions. Like,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And um, they're like, how old are you? 38. And they're like, oh, they thought they had a 16-year-old in there. Anyway, so they start to try to figure out how to get me out of there, how to unfold me out of this wrecked, it's, you saw the smashed up airplane. There's really no way that 3 people could be in
No.
there.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I
Yeah.
saw it. Is like, how do you fit anyone in? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a crumbled up
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
They finally were able to get me out and put me on a flat board. They were asking, can you move your legs over here? And nothing, couldn't do anything. I've seen the pictures and it's hard to know, did I remember that? Or is it just a remembering looking at the pictures?
creating a memory.
Yeah, creating a memory.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's hard to know sometimes.
One thing, Chris was really lucky that she wasn't able to go that day. My daughter, Kristen, had just turned 16. She loved Chico. She went, I don't know, we'd been going 10 years or something. She had her favorite horse that she would ride. It was like a dude ranch kind of thing. She loved, the hot pool. She liked packing our parachutes. And, she made money when she was 10 years old packing our parachutes. We'd give her $1 to go pack it.
That sounds like my kid Blue. Like, what can I do for $1? Like, pack our bags.
There you go. And she was kind of mad that she wasn't going to get to go this year. We're like, just adults this year. So grateful
Yeah.
that she didn't go. So after they get me out, they're unfolding me and they're like, there's somebody else in here. I was wrapped up in Brent's arms. I don't know if I had jumped into the front seat or if he had turned around and grabbed me. Bernadette and Ray said it looked as though he had reached behind me and grabbed me. I was cradled. His arms were around my head and my head was down in his, by his torso. They said that once they got him out, he was still pink and he looked great. So they tried to revive him, but it had been so long and they worked on him for about an hour and it was just too late. He had a head injury. The seatbelts we had in the airplane were just like seatbelts and then a lap strap, a chest and not even a chest strap.
Well,
So he had probably hit his head on the dashboard. I hope he died instantly. I don't know.
I have that wish every day too with
Yeah.
my family. Like, I hope they went quick.
Yeah. I've been thinking about your story. It brings me to tears because you're so young, the whole family. Yeah. My story is not as tragic as your story. You win. Yeah. Wow. So, they take me to the nearby hospital, little regional hospital. I remember being in the operating room. I don't remember everything through the next few days, but I remember a lot.
It's like the parts you do remember, like you remember.
Yeah.
Like you vivid.
Completely seared
And
into.
then there's just parts like, and I'm sure you probably did this too when people were telling you all this info, like filling you in. You were probably like, I just don't remember any of this.
Yeah.
And so weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, the parts that I remember very well.
Yeah, and then they're supported by emotion,
Yeah.
and because emotion is what really makes the memory, not just seeing it, but feeling it with every sensation that you have,
I think the weird part with grief too, because I think you're so right. And maybe when we were talking about the pain at the very, very beginning, and you mentioned how it's not as bad, but when it hits, it still hits very much the same. But anyway, like when you think back, or when I think back to my wife Courtney or my kids, it just bring me to tears. Like the memories would just break me, and then like sometimes they slowly started to be good memories.
Yeah.
Like it'd be the same memory, but instead of making me cry, I would smile and be grateful that we did that or had that moment.
Oh, that's great.
I think that's one of the shifts or parts of grief is the different emotions connected with the same memories.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of both. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I'm grateful. It's just kind of a weird combo of both,
Yeah.
I guess. But anyway, yeah, keep going. Sorry.
I remember being in the operating room and joking with the doctor. They were going to put a halo on my head. Halo is a metal structure that holds your spine, that aligns your head and your spine.
Yeah. One of the pictures you brought today is, I think you're in it, right?
Yeah,
One of those
I'm in
pictures,
it.
yeah.
So it's bolted to your head. There's like a halo around your
Yeah.
head. They bolt it in like a 1/4 of an inch. Right here, you can see my scars.
Oh, wow.
And then I've got 2 in the back. So there's pins that are bolted right into your. And I remember joking with the doctor, saying, "Do you use like a Craftsman drill?"
I could decker.
Yeah.
That's so mine when you're like in the worst moment of your
And
life,
he's
just
like-
dropping a joke.
Well, actually, yeah.
What have you always been a jokester, or you use comedy to
No,
grieve, or you're just so out of it, or what was what? Such a great comment.
I don't know.
I'm sure the doctor was like, "What the hell is?"
He's probably like, "Go back to sleep."
Yeah, I think, what kind of drugs did we give her? What is she saying right now?
And at the time, I knew within myself that Brent had died. I hadn't asked anybody yet, or I don't remember asking anybody yet.
also looking back at my medical records, we were able to get all the documentation. I knew I'd want it someday. They revived me twice on the way to the hospital, and it's maybe 20 miles away from Chico. I don't have the details of that other than they revived me twice. So I spent 3 hours there in Livingston, and then they life-flighted me into Billings at their trauma hospital, and spent a week there.
And what were your injuries? What?
Oh, my
What?
injuries. I had a traumatic brain injury. My left eye optic nerve is dead, so I'm blind in that eye.
Are you still blind like today?
Yeah, I'm still blind in that eye.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I broke my C6 vertebrae. It's like on the back of your neck, that hump, that's your,
Right there.
yeah. And then, and it did not sever my spinal cord there. And then I broke so it goes cervix, thoracic. So, and then they go by numbers. So my T1 through T4, those vertebrae were shattered in a million shards. I broke my collarbone and my shoulder blade, cut up my face. I wasn't really bloody, but I had scars. Punctured both lungs, broke 3 ribs.
How did you not die?
I guess I did twice. I don't know.
All right. Good point.
Right?
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like these are.
My heart was okay, and kidneys and everything, but I still have trouble with one lung.
Man.
Yeah. I think that's all. I think.
looks at JD and
Oh yeah, my teeth. Along with my facial, my teeth were all knocked out. They were not knocked out. They were knocked into different positions, like they went behind each other.
man.
So it's been 30 years of dental, getting my teeth because they would just die off.
30 years of a lot of things
Yeah,
for you.
a
But
lot
yeah,
of
like
things.
that's.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so sorry.
Thanks. For the most part, I'm great.
Sure.
I'm healthy.
Sure. Oh.
So they flew me to Billings, and Bob called my family. He called my mom's house. I think I had that on my emergency paperwork for him for the skydiving parties. And my mom and my daughter Kristen and my brother had gone down to southern Utah to my uncle's funeral. So they were driving home when the accident happened. It was on a Thursday, June 27th at 12:30 in the afternoon. And Bob called my mom's house, and my sister was there. And he told her. And then he called Brent's family, his mom and dad, and Steve's wife. that would have been hard to do, I think, make it the phone calls.
No, the phone calls are so traumatic, and I think part of it is because you're going through all the stages of grief, but when you have to tell someone on the phone what's happening, that's acceptance. Like that's it's real. It's
Yeah.
so real. And I remember like seeing my family for the first time and friends. Like I couldn't say it because if I said it, I'd just start crying.
Yeah.
And I remember making those when I found out that my family died, and then I had to call my friend to pick me up, and I had to call my parents. Like those phone calls were just so, because you're gonna ruin their life with the call, like, and then you're going through it too.
Well, like when the doctor told you
Yeah, like
they're all dead in the cart, you're
like,
what?
exactly, like
Yeah.
what?
What? Yeah.
That's not possible. Like things like that don't happen. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Those phone calls are hard. And then in 1996, so the communication is so different too. Like,
Yeah, landline. I mean,
Yeah,
cell
no,
phones were
yeah, like
the
it-
big brick, and it was so expensive if you could even afford it. Nobody had cell phones.
how'd your kids respond? Like, what was that like for them?
So my sister Rebecca, when my mom and my brother and Kristen pulled up in the driveway, she went out and met him in the driveway and told them. She hugged Kristen and said, "Sorry, Brent died, and your mom is paralyzed." Kristen's a really strong person.
She was 16 at the time.
She
right?
was 16. Yeah, so her stepdad was dead and her mom was changed forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom and my dad and Kristen flew up to Billings the next morning. Kristen's dad followed the next day. He's like, "I can't believe I sent my daughter there by herself." So he flew up and was with her. There was a doctor who was South African. I don't remember his face. I remember his soul and his accent. And I remember asking him or telling him, "My husband's dead, right?" He said, "Yeah." Yeah. And at some point, I was the next day, so on the Friday, we talked about grief being that you didn't get to have that last conversation or the future conversations. I was fortunate because Brent came to me, and
While you're in the hospital.
while I'm in the hospital, it wasn't an out-of-body experience, really. It's completely impossible to describe it because we don't have the vocabulary to
Yeah.
explain
know.
what death is and the beauty of it. And
I've been a public speaker for 2 years now, and I can't explain it still. I get
Yeah.
up there and I try, but like these words aren't working.
yeah,
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. Yeah.
there's not enough value in the words.
I think that's why you just cry. I think that's part of
Yeah.
why you cry. It's
There you
like
go.
I don't know how else to communicate it. So this is what it looks
Yeah.
like on the inside. This is what it feels like. Like, and you just cry maybe because I don't know. I always feel better after a good long cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so he visits you.
So, yeah, and you hear about the tunnel. You walk through the
You see
light.
the light, and yeah.
it wasn't a tunnel for me. It was more of a funnel that came from a teeny tiny little speck in my soul that is in my heart area. And I can't explain this, but as the best way I can explain it is it was a funnel of pure white light that came from a teeny tiny little speck, and then it just grew all around me, and everything around me was this white light. But it wasn't light, and it wasn't white. It was, what I could feel was just pure love. Never felt it like that. And it just surrounded me, and complete peace, but also complete wonder, like, what is this? Wow, this is amazing, because it was so much love. And I could see a black speck in the distance. I couldn't see anything else that was coming toward me, and I realized it was Brent, but it was only a visual for my sake, so that I could recognize him, I think.
Maybe kind of like a dream, like other people might not recognize it as Brent, but you knew for sure, like, this is Brent
Yeah.
in this situation. Like,
Right.
I know that's Brent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing his outline, or his shadow, or his body, but not body. Another thing, there's no words. There's no
Yeah.
words for it. He walked towards me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're here. And we had the deepest conversations.
Conversations.
Yeah, and I don't know how long I was there. I don't know.
This sounds like a mushroom trip. Like, this is intense. So, so what do you remember what you guys were talking about?
You know, we were raised Mormon.
Me too.
And in the Mormon church, everything you do is a sin, and you're going to hell.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
That's why I feel bad. Anyway, keep going.
And like his obituary said, he was very spiritual. But both of us had fallen away from the church, didn't go to church, but yet it's there with you forever.
Oh, yeah. Ingrained in there.
Ingrained.
Deep in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we always wondered, is it true? Is it partly true? You know,
I love this. Is incredible. This is wow. This is connecting so well with me right now.
So I asked him, is it true? He's like, nope.
That's so good.
And he said, you're doing just fine.
Aw.
You just have to continue to love people. That's what it's all about, is love. And you know what? I don't think I'm going to hell anymore. I don't have, from then on, I was like, I'm okay giving up this religion in my life. I'm just going to love people. So far, that's worked well for me. It changed me. It changed the way I look at people and the way I interact with people.
because I don't know if you, like, I lost my family and then left the Mormon church very close to the same time. And obviously losing the one you love most is way worse than leaving a religion. But like, there was like going through both of those at the same time is
Yeah.
weird, because that used to be my map for where you go when you die. And so
Yeah,
now I didn't have that anymore.
exactly.
And then I have all these people I love that are dead now. And so I do remember just being very like, what is any, like, just so
Yeah.
confused. And like, it was hard for me to trust my own feelings. And
Yeah.
yeah. And I still have that issue today. Like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's true other than what you just said, which is love people. And I think maybe I'm just addicted to grief now and talking about it, but I think being vulnerable and talking about grief and our pain and our mistakes and our guilt, I think that's one of the best ways to build love.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, you're right.
at least
Share
in my
yourself.
opinion. Yeah, like
Yeah.
we all have guilt and shame and some sort of trauma, some sort of grief, and we just don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
We just talk about the football game or the politics, or like don't like what to eat, what healthy, like, do we eat the white part of the egg or the yellow? I don't know. It changes every 10 years. Like, this is what we talk about. Like, and I'm just like, but this conversation, like listening to you open up and talk about all your stuff, and you're a girl, I'm a boy. You're older than me. I'm younger than you. And we have so much in common.
Yeah.
So much in common, but we would never
We wouldn't
realize that. We didn't
right.
talk about
Right.
the absolute worst parts of our life.
We wouldn't even have thought about each other walking on by.
Yeah, if I would have cut you off driving, like, this young dumbass doesn't know what I've been through, and then like, actually, like, maybe a little bit, and like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
that is love, that is humanity, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see God now. Is it's us, it's me and you, it's JD, it's right, it's all of us, and how we
Right.
interact with each other, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Kelly, are we good, right? Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about not just grief over Brent, but then your physical.
Can we?
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry. I have one more little thing to tell.
Go for it.
Okay.
Because I wanted to ask about the voice again.
Okay. Let me get through this. Not only did we talk about religion, we talked about things that one soul talks to another soul about. Again, I don't know how to explain it. And maybe it's just sharing love. I remember being there for weeks talking about it, or it could have been a millisecond, or your senses are totally askew.
Yeah.
Like they're all mixed up. Like you can see what you can taste, and you can feel what you can hear. And
this sounds like a mushroom trip again. I'm sorry, it just does though. But you're so and
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, then that concept of time is weird. Like how long have we been here?
Yeah, time, distance.
Yeah.
I was with him for so long, but not. And it wasn't like we were having a conversation. Like I would speak and then he would speak. It was all just thinking and feeling. It was just me throwing feelings out to him and him throwing them back. And we knew what each other was saying. And it's completely different than the experience that we have here. Experiencing with you today. It's totally different. So he said, "You can come with me." I'm like, hell yeah. And I loved him so much. And he reached his hand out and I went to grab it. And at that instant, Kristen walked into my hospital room, my 16-year-old that had to fly up there to see her mom. I'm sure that the doctor out in the hallway said, "Okay, be prepared for what you're going to see. So she walked in the room and it was just like, "Hi, Mom," in her sweet sing-song voice. And I looked at Brent and I'm like, I can't go. I've got to stay. I've got to stay for her. And he said, "You've made the right choice." And he started to back up, and that white funnel just collapsed into itself and just back a big pop into my heart and was gone. And there stood my heart, my daughter. Just there accepting me. I was there for a few more days, and then they airlifted me and Kristen to Salt Lake on a medical jet. Who knew they had those?
Yeah.
With a team of nurses and doctors. And then my life had to start over and get used to being paralyzed, from the armpits down, and learn how to live and learn how to sit up with the halo and
So you started armpits down.
armpits down right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I again relate with you with when your daughter walked in, like that was me with Blue, like because I would have.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I think I would have ended it. And then and then I was stuck in this weird limbo, like I can't die, but I don't want to live
Yeah.
because of the guilt and the shame and the pain. And Metallica has this song called "One," and in it he talks about I cannot live, I cannot die, and like man, like that's what it was like for me. But Blue was the reason I kept going.
Yeah.
But I wasn't paralyzed. And so, can we get into that? Like your physical, because not only do you have this grief, trauma, your spirit has been shattered, but your physical body broken too. And you lived a lifestyle where you were using your body, like you were.
Yeah.
How's 28 years in the chair now? Right, in the wheelchair. Or
Yeah.
how can you talk about that a little bit?
There's pain, but yet there's no pain. I mean, I don't have sensation from my armpits down, but yet I hurt, but I don't. I've got nerve damage in both arms that is excruciating. It's like the very worst, where your arm falls asleep and that tingle that you just.
Man,
So I have that all the time.
is that just get exhausting? Like
Exhausting. That's a good word for
you're
it.
just
Exhausting.
done. Like this, yeah.
I when I got to Salt Lake, went to LDS hospital. I was there for a couple of weeks in intensive care. And then they're like, "Okay, time to get going with your life." I'm in a halo that I'm going to be in for 3 months. And let's get you sitting up and let's get you living. And I could not do it. I could
There's
not.
no way I could. My husband just died, so
My-
there's that. I don't want to live
Right.
for that reason, let alone the physical part.
And the doctor's like, "Well, if you don't do that, you're going to have to lay flat for 3 months." And I'm like, "Okay." And that was the best thing that I could have done at that time, because I
needed to grieve Brent. I didn't want to concentrate on my body. It was just overwhelming. I couldn't even think about being paralyzed, or hurting, or
Like, how do I go on the rest of my life without Brent? Also, how do I go on? I'm paralyzed now. I can't even walk. I can't even take care. Like,
and I'm a mom,
and
you know?
like, I love the quote 10-9. Like, life's 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it. Like, I love it, but in all honesty, it took me at least a year to actually do anything positive
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
You're kind of thrust into this, like, you have to do something about it day one. Like,
Yeah.
you're fighting for this physical health, physical battle day one. Like, you had to do the 1090 thing from the get-go, which
It was 90-10, like you said.
yeah,
It
like,
totally, it was, yeah.
and I'm just so impressed. I don't know how you did that.
I did it because of Kristen
Yeah.
and the rest of my family. My brother came and stayed in my hospital room with me. My mom came every day. I had to lay totally flat for 3 months, so they put me in a retirement rehab facility, and I laid there for 3 months and grieved, completely grieved.
Were you crying yet? Or could you cry? Did you cry every day?
I cried 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I was on pain medication that made me sleep, made me numb, helped me get through it. And then was, I was in this rehab center. There was one doctor for the entire center. And in the middle of this, he got indicted for Medicare fraud. So then there wasn't a doctor.
You're kidding
And
me.
I'm still on these fentanyl patches and Lortab. And it got so bad. I'm like, I cannot live like this anymore. I mean, just horrible nightmares and from the drugs. So I peeled off all my patches and threw away my drugs, what I could, threw them across the room. And I'm like, I can't do it. And then went through withdrawals. And the next day, the nurse came in and she said, I don't care if I get fired for this or not. We're going to put these patches back on you. We're going to get you off of these drugs. And it took a couple of weeks for them to just wean me off. And I don't take pain drugs anymore.
I think you lost your husband. You lost your body. Like, you're hurt. But then the reason that you keep going is for other people.
Yeah.
Like, I love that simple concept. Like, we is greater than me.
Yeah.
And that's so much my story too. And then I do think we never talk about this, but I do think going through grief, physical pain, that is very much the agenda. Like, here's the drugs. And, like, what are we doing with these? Like, it's not good. Like, let's just numb the pain. You don't have to talk about it. Just get on the antibiotics, then get on the depression meds, and then just here's your Tuesday pills. And it's like, what are all these?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is how we should be handling grief. I think we should be feeling it instead of taking stuff that just numb everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my problem with alcohol, was I was just numbing it. Why are pills? They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, some reason in society, probably because of money and stuff. I don't know.
Probably.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because that does seem to be the path. Is you have the funeral, you talk about them, and then maybe you do therapy, take the medication.
Yeah.
And then you'll see them when you die. Good luck.
And then you carry on and
Like, peace
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
The voice that you heard on the plane,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've been tormented with a lot of guilt that I wasn't in the car. Thinking back on that voice, does that bring you guilt, or did it? Or what do you what are your thoughts on that voice that you heard?
Horrible guilt. But
remember, I'm a woman and I was Mormon. And so you're kind of taught that
And it's 1996
in this
Mormon woman.
96 Mormon woman,
Like
right?
even,
Yeah. And
yeah,
even though I wasn't
you don't have a voice, really.
right, I don't have a voice.
They're not going to
And
listen to you.
I'm taught to kind of wonder, did I really hear that? No. Certainly if I heard that, they heard it.
The priesthood holder would have definitely heard.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a voice that I recognized, but I can't tell you who it was. There was a time.
Like you can't tell me who it was because you don't want that person to
No,
be
I
found,
don't.
or you
I
just
don't
literally
know.
you don't
I
know.
don't know. It was such a familiar voice.
Wow.
I don't know if it was a global familiar or if it was familiar to just me. But I was years before. I was driving through an intersection, and cars were not stopping, and I either needed to brake or I needed to go, or I was going to get T-boned by this car coming through. And that same voice said to me, "Go." And I slammed on the accelerator and then pulled over and about fainted because it was so real, that voice. And it was so scary that I could have been killed in that car wreck that was happening in slow motion. But it was that same voice. And so when I heard it in the airplane, I'm like, oh, there you are again.
Wow.
Yeah. But I don't know who it was. I wish I can still hear it. I can still hear the voice. I wish I knew who it was.
So 28 years of dealing with this. And I kind of asked you at the beginning, like with the pain, like what's the pain like now? But with your physical self as well as just the grief, how's your grief journey unfolded? Your 28 years ups and downs, lefts and rights. Like I'm so sorry you had to go through this.
Well,
you're amazing.
I figured I would never remarry. I mean, I couldn't find anybody as good as Brent,
Right.
or I didn't have any desire to. When I finally got out of the hospital 4 months later, Kristen and I were building a house and trying to get on with our lives and start new and, leave Ogden and try to have a relationship with Brent's girls because they were grieving too.
Man, yeah.
They had a hard time, and there were so many types of pain that you go through with grief. I mean, I grieved not having my dogs with me, or,
Things that you wouldn't even think about.
exactly.
But when you're grieving for so long, they start to,
Yeah.
they impact. And then I do think when Brent died, did you find it's hard to explain, but maybe a deeper love or a different kind of connection? Because I talk to Courtney every day still.
Yeah.
And I hate to say, but maybe more sincere than some days she was alive.
Yeah, probably. Well, she knows your thoughts.
And that's the other part too. Is
Mhm.
is she watching me? There's just. I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, when Brent died, did you have a deeper type of love, or maybe deeper is the wrong word, but a different appreciation for him after he passed?
Yes, but another thing that he and I talked about was, what's the purpose of all this? He said, well, I told him, you don't need to wait for me. And he said, you don't need to wait for me because it's not like we're going to be paired up in heaven, whatever, I quote heaven. It's all one big communal love.
So that kind of was a different thought that I had ever had. I mean, being Mormon, you're taught you're going to be with this, this person after you die, but it's not like that. And I don't care if somebody says, yeah, maybe that was just a dream, or whatever. If it was a dream, that's how I got there. That's the mechanism, because I don't know how I would get there anyway. But yes, deeper for him, but then also deeper for people in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I met JD and I thought I could never find anybody like Brent. And I didn't. I found somebody different from Brent, but equally amazing and equally soulmates with him. But yet I still miss Brent. It's not so much that I miss him. I just miss that connection with people, and I don't know. It's
No, you're
just
making,
one
yeah.
big ball of love.
That's how
Yep.
that's what I think too.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about or say before we get to your favorite movies and start wrapping this up? Anything else?
Oh, I don't know. I've got 28 more years to go to tell you the story, but no, I'm exhausted. Let's wrap it up so I can go home and take a nap.
I know they are so exhausting, huh?
I don't know how you do it.
It,
How you talk about it all the
it's,
time.
It's practice.
Yeah.
It's literally like everything else. Just
Practice.
I've done it so much now
Yeah.
that you get easier to. Yeah, I used to just cry. You should not be able to talk, just cry.
Yeah.
And now I can talk about it. Thanks for your example, and for someone like me, because one of my daily thoughts I have is the exhaustion of it, and I don't have the physical part that you have to go through, which again I just can't comprehend. But it just gets exhausting, and some of my dark days, I'm like, I can't do this for 30, 50 more years.
Yeah.
I can't. And then someone like you that's been doing it for 28 years, or Jeff Olson, or Craig. I mean, I can go down the list of people I've met through the podcast. And I'll be honest, and I did think when I first started the podcast, like, oh, maybe like I'm smart now, like I'll know cool stuff, and that is just so not true. But I think, like you said, it's just this deeper appreciation that you have for everyone now after losing Brent. And it's not so much a knowledge thing. It's just appreciating every moment I'm in much differently.
Yeah.
Like really fully appreciating that this could literally be the last time we see each other in this room. Yeah. And yeah, it's just the feeling of everything is much different. But yeah, anyway, I just rambled right there for a long time. But it gets easier.
Yeah,
Practice. And even like you're with Jake, like we just have so much in common. Like it's so wild to me. Like you're in a relationship again, and I'm like,
are you in a relationship?
Yeah, with Sammy, and everything you said about JD and Brent,
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, like thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, just speaking my language.
And you also live for your kid.
Big part for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't
and if that's all you can give is just love Blue at one point, that's all you have to do.
It's funny because when they were all alive, I love being a dad, but I thought like, okay, I'm a dad, but like, how am I going to achieve life? How am I going to achieve success? How am I going to be happy? Like, what am I going to do? And now it's like, I'm a dad. Like being a dad is it, actually.
Yeah.
There's nothing better. There's nothing else that's worth doing than being a father to Blue. And I guess that's what I was trying to say earlier is just the appreciation of that from losing everyone has changed my life. So you've been so brave too. You were nervous coming to talk today, and
Yeah.
you did so good.
Thanks.
I'm proud of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, top 3. You were telling me before we started, you're like, you know what? I'm not a big movie person, and I had to ask my girlfriends, what are my top 3 favorite movies?
Well, I have to. Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, my dad would just hug you right now. Yeah.
Love it.
What does he say in that movie? Get busy living or get busy dying.
Yep.
Yeah, story of my life.
Yeah.
Classic. Okay, what else you got?
You've Got Mail.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, rom-com. I'm not a rom-com person, but that one I've seen 50
Classic.
times.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I had to ask my girlfriends, what's my third favorite? And then I have a list of them. Like, oh, yeah, I got to watch that. I got to watch
That's
that.
hilarious.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So we're just going top 2. And
Top
then
2.
We'll have you on next year, and you can give us your third favorite
Yeah.
movie then or something.
We can talk about medical rehab because that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, don't know how you did it. Don't know how you do it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Life's 10% what happens to you and 90% what you're going to do about it.